and lawyers, of course.
Right. Up next, as temperatures plummet, find out how many pensioners are going to be pushed into poverty after the winter fuel payment cut, according to figures from the... Andrew Pearce?
The government itself.
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
(9:49). This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
So the Department for Work and Pensions has released new figures which show that up to 100,000 additional pensioners could be pushed into poverty due to the winter fuel cuts.
However, the Prime Minister says pensioners are going to be better off under Labour because the state pension will increase next April.
So we're joined by the economist, Jonathan Davis. Good morning, Jonathan. There's a couple of big stories. We want to talk to you as well about the inflation figures as well this morning. But first of all, what exactly is the definition of poverty, if you don't mind, if that's within your remit, in terms of the government's explanation of how elderly are going to be poor?
It's not within my remit. I would be surprised if they had a good definition for it. They'll have a definition, but it won't be a good one.
OK, thank you. Sorry, I did caveat that with the fact that might be a little bit outside of your area of expertise.
But it is extraordinary, Jonathan, isn't it, for the government's own advice from the department, which is just a few hundred yards from the Treasury physically, revealing that the cut in winter fuel, which has been bitterly contested up and down the land, will drive pensioners into poverty, whatever the government's own measure of poverty is. The government's own internal investor advice is saying that, yet they're still pressing ahead with the policy.
Well, you know, it's another policy to help what's been going on for the last 10 years, let's face it. Interesting, I was watching the farmers' protest in the piece before, and I saw lots of signs for net zero. That's really what it's all about. It's about funding renewables, solar, wind, going against our natural resources, increasing the costs of living for everyone. And if that means cutting the benefits for this or that sector and increasing the money going to their favoured sectors, well, that's what politicians will do, whether you're red or blue. I will point out about the winter fuel allowance. It's defined as a government benefit designed to help older people with their heating bills during the winter months. Well, we're going to have higher heating bills. The price of oil is rising globally, and I believe it will rise for the next couple of years. We're going to have higher and higher inflation. We have just started winter. I was playing tennis last night. My God, it was cold. It was 3 degrees. I could hardly hold my tennis racket. So why they believe this is an appropriate tactic, I cannot imagine. But frankly, the big picture is net zero and funding the things that the politicians like, such as also the NHS. And frankly, the rest of it is tinkering.
And Jonathan, explain to us that there's a bigger hike in inflation expected. Is most of that due to rising energy costs, bearing in mind the impact of the budget won't have been felt in the current inflation figures?
Let's go back a little bit. From 2020 to 2022, we had a huge rise of inflation because of the rise in price in oil, gas, copper, food, you name it. And indeed, by the end of 2022, in this country, we had the highest inflation in 41 years. Now, in the last 2 years, commodity prices, I've just described them, oil, etc., the things that you take out of the ground or grow, farmers, the price of commodities globally has plummeted. Thus, our inflation rate has also fallen. It doesn't mean that our costs of living or our costs of doing business have fallen, because clearly they haven't. I mean, look at our home energy bills and our business energy bills. They haven't gone down, even though the cost of fuel has gone down a half in the last 2 years, again, to pay for the net zero. But we have seen a rise in inflation announced today, and it is the beginning of a next period, 1 to 2 years, of rising inflation because commodity prices have bottomed and they're starting to rise.
Okay.
So the idea that a budget changed our inflation rate, sorry, it doesn't hold water.
Thank you, Jonathan. Economist Jonathan Davis there. Don't go anywhere.